ආයුබෝවන්. So today, for our grammar lesson, we are going to focus on past perfect continuous. අද අපි grammar lesson එකට බලන්න යන්නේ past perfect continuous කියන tense එක, right? හරි, අපි ඉස්සෙල්ලා බලමු past perfect continuous tense එකේ form එක කොයි වගේද කියලා. So we'll have a look at what the form is for the past continuous tense. Okay? Sorry, past perfect continuous tense. Now, when we make the past perfect continuous කිව්වම මොකද්ද? හැමතිස්සෙම ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා ing form එකක් එනවා කියලා. Past perfect, right? එතකොට had been, the past participle of the verb plus ing verb එකට එන්න ඕනේ, right? So he had been working. When you put it together, he'd been working. He had been shopping. We'd been shopping. Okay? The short form of would is also the. මතක තියාගන්න. මතකද අපි කරා, right? However, would is always followed by the infinitive. He would eat. He'd eat dinner. Okay? He'd eating එනවනම්, right? He'd eating එන්න බෑ would එකත් එක්ක. එතකොට he'd been working. So you have to remember had is followed by the past participle of the verb, right? So positive, he had been working, he'd been working. We had been shopping, we'd been shopping. මතක තියාගන්න would එකට අපි the කියන contracted form එක දැම්මට ඒක follow කරන්නේ infinitive එක. This one is followed by the past participle, right? Okay. So, practice question 1, make the past perfect continuous positive. දැන් මම ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මෙතන කියලා දුන්නේ positive එක විතරයි. right? මම මෙතන ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කියලා දුන්නේ positive එක විතරයි. He had been working, we had been shopping, she had been singing, right? ඉතින් singular උනත් plural උනත් had been verb plus ing. Okay? So let's have a look at the first one. Work all day, so I didn't want to go out. So you can say, I had been working all day, so I didn't want to go out. She slept for 10 hours when I woke her. She had been sleeping for 10 hours when I woke her. They live in Beijing for 3 years when he lost his job. So, මොකක්ද එන්නේ? They had been living in Beijing for 3 years, right? Fourth one. When we met, you work at that company for 6 months. When we met, මොකක්ද එතකොට structure එක positive එකේ? You had been working at that company for 6 months. Number 5, we eat all day, so we felt a bit ill. We had been eating all day, so we felt a bit ill, right? Next one, he was red in the face because run. එතකොට මොකක්ද එන්නේ? He was red in the face because he had been running. So, you should know the spelling rules by now. දැන් අපි ඊළඟ එක බලමු. It rained, the road was covered in water. It had been raining. It had been raining and the road was covered in water. I was really tired because I had been studying. Right? We go out for 3 years when we got married. We had been going out. We had been going out for 3 years when we got married. It had been snowing. For 3 days. Okay. Now we read the positive Isella sentences sticker. Then now we're going to have a look at the negative. Not කියන එක add කරන එක, right? She had not been cooking. එතකොට not එන්නේ had එකයි been එකයි මැදට. Okay? She had been not cooking වෙන්න බෑ. She had not been cooking. That means she'd not been cooking. They had not been reading. They'd not been reading. Okay? So remember the word not comes in between had and been. Okay? Negative form. Now let's practice some sentences. Positive practice kara api, then api negative practice karanne yanne. Right? I not work there long when she quit. I had not been working there when she quit. She not work, but she was tired. She had not been working, but she was tired anyway. It not rain long when I got home. It had not been raining long when I got home. He was in trouble with the teacher because he had not been going to classes. We had not been living in London for 3 years. When we got married, it was more like 5 years. Okay. Next one. Although it was hot in the kitchen, Julie had not been cooking. Next one. I not sleep when there was a knock at the door. I had not been sleeping when there was a knock at the door. He didn't feel healthy because not go to the gym. He had not been going to the gym. I caught a cold because I had... Oh, that's very weird, no? I caught a cold because I had not been eating properly, but okay. I caught a cold because I had not been eating properly. Last one, she looked tired, but she had not been studying. So it's important that you identify these sentence patterns. හරිද? මේ patterns සහ කොහොමද tense එක use කරන එක වටින්නේ? ඕගොල්ලන්ට writing වලට එනකොට IELTS අපිට තියෙනවා you should be able to write simple sentences. බලන්න මම advanced level එකේදී ඕගොල්ලොත් එක්ක කරනවා marking criteria එක, right? So that is for about 5, right? 6 වෙනකොට you should be able to write simple and somewhat of complex sentences. ඊට වඩා උඩට යනකොට 7, 8 වගේ යනකොට you should be able to write a range of complex sentence structures. එතකොට complex මම ඒක explain කරනවා simple, compound, complex sentences ඔයගොල්ලන්ට begin එකෙත් explain කරා. එතකොට complex එකෙත් you should be able to write a variety. So you can use different tenses, put them together as long as the timelines fit in and ek meaningfulness. If it has a meaning, it gives meaning, then of course you could do that, right? Okay, so let's have a look at yes-no questions. Yes-no eka. To make yes or no questions, change the position of had and the subject similarly to the past simple. Now we're going to past simple kalla mataka ati, right? So example, api mehemai kiyanne. It had been snowing. Right? So sentence එක ඇවිල්ලා it had been snowing. දැන් මේක කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? had එකයි subject එකයි තැන මාරු කරන්න කියලා. So basically had යනවා මෙතනට පළවෙනියට, right? it කියන එක යනවා මෙතනට. Right? So how do we do it? It should be had it been snowing. Had it been snowing? Question mark. Yes, it had been snowing. Oh, snowing means tibba. No, it hadn't been snowing. Nah, negative veka. Had we been studying? Yes, we had been studying. No, we hadn't been studying. Right? So, WH questions balamu දැන්. ඒ අපි බැලුවේ ඉස්සෙල්ලා yes no questions. දැන් එන්නේ WH questions. Now, in a WH question, the question word goes at the beginning of everything else and ithuru tika okkoma same. So, example. Now, mehema gattot, let's take an example. I'll show you, right? She had been drinking. Right? එතකොට had goes here, this goes here. So had she been drinking? Had she been drinking? So what do? You put the WH question right at the front. So you can say what had. එතකොට H එක simple වෙනවා. මොකද W එකනේ capital වෙන්නේ. What had she been drinking? Right? She had been drinking orange juice. Next one. Had they been walking? Right? How long had they been walking? They had been walking for 30 minutes. Okay? Right. Practice question 3. Make past perfect continuous yes or no or WH questions අපි බලමු, right? WH තියෙනවා නම් that's a WH question. නැත්නම් yes no එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. When you got sick, you eat enough. When you got sick, had you had been eating enough. Had you been eating enough? Had you been eating enough? Harida. There was water everywhere. What the children do? What had? And WH එක ඉස්සරහට එනවනේ. එතකොට what had subject එක. What had the children been doing? Next one, it rained when you left the restaurant. Had it been raining? Had, මොකද ඒකේ WH question එකක් නැහැ ඉස්සරහට. So had it subject, had it been raining when you left the restaurant? Okay. Next one. How long she lived in London when she found that job? එතකොට මේක ඇවිල්ලා WH question එකක් තමයි, right? How long එතකොට එන්නේ had. ඊට පස්සේ subject එක. How long had she been living in London when she found that job? Why you study so hard? WH question එකක්. So why had you subject එක. Why had you been studying? Why had you been studying so hard? Why was the house so messy? What she do? එතකොට WH question tag එකක්. So what ඊට පස්සේ එන්නේ had ඊට පස්සේ එන්නේ subject එක. What had she been doing? Number 7, how long we wait when the bus finally arrived? How long? WH question එකක්. ඒක මුලටම එනවා. ඊට පස්සේ had ඊට පස්සේ subject එක we been waiting. Past participle plus the verb plus ing. පේනවද structure එක දැන් ඔළුවට යන්න ඕනේ. මම ගොඩාක් කරනවා දැන් ඔයගොල්ලොත් එක්ක practice questions, right? So this should go into your head very very quickly now. හොඳට absorb කරගන්න, right? How long he play? How කියන එක WH question එකක්. So how long ඊට පස්සේ එන්නේ had ඊට පස්සේ subject එක he, past participle been, verb play plus ing playing, right? ඊළඟ එක I work that day, right? Had I been working? Had I been working that day? Next one, she see him for long when they moved to Paris. So had she been seeing him for long when they moved to Paris? There you are. We have finished that bit. Now we are going to have a look at the use of the past perfect continuous. දැන් මෙච්චරලා අපි බැලුවේ form එක. අපි බලමු use එක. කොයි වෙලාවටද අපි past perfect continuous tense එක පාවිච්චි කරන්න. So let's have a look at the first use. Something that started in the past, ඒ කියන්නේ අතීතයේ පටන් ගත්ත දෙයක්, and continued up to another action or time in the past. ඒ අතීතේ පටන් ගත්ත එක යම් කිසි අතීතෙම වෙච්ච සිදුවීමක් දක්වා ඒ දක්වා වුණා නම්, right, we use the past perfect continuous. The past perfect continuous tells us how long, just like the present perfect continuous. ඉතින් past perfect එකෙත් අපිට පෙන්නන්නේ how long, present perfect continuous වගේම තමයි. But this time the action continues up to a point in the past rather than the present. ඉතින් present perfect continuous එකේ වර්තමානයේ කාලේ යනකම් ඒ සිදුවීම එනවා. හැබැයි වෙනස තමයි past perfect continuous එකේ අතීත වෙනකම් ඇවිල්ලා ඒක අතීතේ තවත් සිදුවීමක් දක්වා ඇවිල්ලා එතනින් නතර වෙනවා. Usually we use for plus the time to talk about it. Honey? She had been working at that company for a year. පේනවද? For කියන එක එතන තියෙනවා. Time එක a year. When she met her boyfriend. ඉතින් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් for කියලා අපිට පෙන්නනවා ඒ කාල සීමාව යනකොට. She had been working at that company for a year when she met her boyfriend. Boyfriend හම් වෙනකොට එයා ඒ company එකේ අවුරුද්දක් වැඩ කරලා ඉවර වෙලා තිබුණේ. So this is completely in the past. හැබැයි ඒ සිදුවීම අනිත් සිදුවීමත් එක්ක එනකොට නතර වෙනවා වගේ එකක් තමයි අපිට තේරෙන්නේ when you use the past perfect continuous. Right? Second use. Something that finished just before another event in the past. අතීතේ එක event එකකට කලින් ඉවර වෙච්ච event එකට we can use the past perfect continuous. This is usually used to show a result at a time in the past. ඉතින් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් එක පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ result එකක් පෙන්වන්න අතීත කාලේ සිද්ධ වෙච්ච දෙයක. It's very similar to the present perfect continuous, but the action finishes before another time in the past then finishing in the present. ඉතින් present perfect continuous වගේම තමයි, හැබැයි මේක අතීතේ තමයි ඉවර වෙන්නේ. The children had been playing and so the room was a mess. Right? මොකද වෙලා තිබුණේ ළමයි සෙල්ලම් කරමින් හිටපු හින්දා result එක මොකද්ද? room එක mess එකක් වෙලා තිබුණා. Right? So practice question 4, match the past perfect continuous sentence halves together, right? When our bus finally arrived, she had been waiting for long. They had been running fast. I could see that. Hadn't been studying. We hadn't been playing football for long. මොනවද තියෙන match කරන්න තියෙන halves, and they were out of their breath. Out of their breath, right? We had been waiting for 40 minutes. විනාඩි 40කට වඩා ඉඳලා තියෙනවා. He hadn't been sleeping well. එච්චර හොඳට නිදාගෙන හිටියේ නැහැ. Before it started to rain. වහින්න පටන් ගන්න කලින්. Before her friends arrived. එයාගේ යාළුවෝ එන්න කලින්. When his mother called. එයාගේ අම්මා call කරාම. Right? Right. So, when our bus finally arrived, we had been waiting for 40 minutes. She had been waiting for long before her friends arrived. They had been running fast and they were out of breath. I could see that he hadn't been sleeping well. He hadn't been studying. we hadn't been playing football for long before it started to rain. Right, so the last one, he hadn't been studying when his mother called. I think it just should be a full stop. When his mother called F. When his mother called. There we are. We have written all the answers. Right? Match කරනකොට බලන්න ගැලපෙන ටික ඉක්මනට ලේසියෙන්ම කරන්න. අනිත් ටික you can do it slowly. That's how I always do it. Right? Next one, practice question 5. Complete the sentences with the verb forms from the box. ඉතින් හරි වචනය අරගෙන complete කරන්න ඕනේ. I would like to give you a few minutes to do it on your own first. Alright, so if you have finished now, let's mark the answers. Right, how difficult was the race when you hadn't been training for it? Second one, she hadn't been wearing. She hadn't been wearing her new shoes long before they started to hurt her feet. When I talked to them, they hadn't been working for days. Number 4, he had been trying to figure out how to return it for 15 minutes before his friend showed him how to do it. Last one, Jess had been sleeping for several hours when Jake came home. There you are, right? Okay, next one, practice question 6. Each past perfect continuous sentence below contains an error. Correct the mistakes. First, let's have a look at these 4 questions. We has been traveling around for Europe for 4 weeks and had already visited 5 countries. The authorities had been searched for him for 3 years before they finally caught him. How long had he been waiting for her before she showed up? I had not been sitting down for very long before I was called into the office. Take a few minutes and do it on your own. Right, so if you have finished, let's have a look at the errors, right? We has been away, we had been traveling. So, we had been traveling around Europe for 4 weeks and had already visited 5 countries. Next one. The authorities had been searched for him. Had been searching, right? So, the authorities had been searching for him for 3 years before they finally caught him. Next one. How long had he been waiting? So you can write down how long had he been waiting. How long had he been waiting for her before she showed up? How long had he been waiting for her before she showed up? So the next one, I had been not sitting. වැරදි මේකේ structure එක නේද? I had not been sitting down for I had not been sitting down for very long before I was called in to the office. Right. Okay. So number 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. My family and I had been living. Right. So එක බලමු. My family and I had been living in England for 15 years before we moved to the US, United States. The man left the room after he was talking on the phone over an hour. The man left the room after he had been talking. The man left the room. The man left the room after he had been talking over the phone for over an hour. I hope they had not been standing. I hope they had not been. Being නෙවෙයි, been. Standing out on the street for long. Next one. Had she been cooked in the kitchen all afternoon? Had she been cooking? Had she been cooking in the kitchen all afternoon, or had she taken a break? Right. Okay, practice question 7. Fill the gaps in the short story with the verbs in the box in the past perfect continuous tense. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ තියෙන verbs past perfect continuous එකට හරවලා ගැලපෙන වචනේ හරි හිස්තැනේ දාන්න. Right, so I'd like you to take a few minutes and try it on your own. Right, so if you have finished, let's have a look at the answers together. දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉවර නම් answers ටික mark කරන්න. The sun was shining and the smell of the freshly cut grass lingered in the air. Michael had been sitting in the garden for a few hours dozing his chair. He was exhausted because he had been working. Not walking. Walking can ඇවිදිනවා. This is working. Long days at the office. His dog, Rufus, was laying in the shade of an old tree. He had been chewing. He had been chewing on a slipper for a while, but Michael hadn't noticed. Michael had been dreaming, right? Michael had been dreaming about going on holiday to a tropical island. Suddenly, a dark shadow dashed over the fence and through the open kitchen. Rufus had been minding his own business with the slipper, but the fiery shadow caught his attention. Barking, he bolted after the creature. He leaped over Michael's leg and began a ferocious pursuit. Michael awoke to the sudden of the commotion and saw his dog chasing a rather fat cat away from his food bowl. For the last few weeks, Michael had been disappearing. Michael had been wandering, no? Michael had been wandering. Why Rufus' new dog biscuits had been disappearing. Faster than he could refill them. The cat had been stealing his food, right? So there we are. Who was eating Rufus's food? A big fat cat, okay? Right, and the last activity for this lesson. Practice question 8. Match each situation to its probable cause. James is sick, right? Why? Because What is the reason? Okay. Because he hadn't been taking his medicine. I feel that would be okay. The roads were blocked because it had been snowing all day. Sarah was angry at her boyfriend because he hadn't been paying attention to her. I went to bed exhausted because I had been working all day. My feet hurt because I had been dancing for hours. The party was a success because we had been preparing it for weeks. We were confident while delivering our presentation. No, I think the first one is wrong. The party was a success because we had been planning it over for an year. Presentation අපි year එකක් නෙවෙයිනේ week එකක් වගේනේ නැත්නම් weeks කීපයක්නේ. We were confident while delivering our presentation because we had been preparing it for weeks. Anthony felt a sense of achievement when he won the marathon because he had been training for months. There we are. Okay. So we have done quite a lot of practice questions, right? We had a look at the use of the present perfect continuous tense. Api balua WH questions, api balua yes no questions. We had a look at the negative form. We had a look at the positive form. So with that, we've come to the end of this lesson, past perfect continuous tense.